martial arts. And right off the bat, Master Sung Do Hung, thank you so much. You don't even know what you mean to me and my family and I. So here is the story. Here is what happened. My dad, as some of you know already from a lot of these shout out videos, the documentaries, the award winning films that I've created in his honor, rest in peace, served in, you know, the United States military. And yeah, we'll get into that later. And you knew him, and you and him were like that. And I remember I really wasn't in path and the destiny to train at your place. This is a story. So my dad was my first coach. My dad taught me boxing. My grandfather came, you know, because my grandfather was also a boxer, and my mom was a farmer, and she grew up third world country, farmer girl. So in the farm, you're not really going to handicap yourself with just punches, elbows, or kicks. You want anything. You don't know what's going to come at you, and you need to be able to defend yourself like Krav Maga, which I hold near and dear to my heart. Right? Claws, anything. The sports component's gone with my mom, right? She is a survivor. She is a warrior. Amazonian, and right, her setting was Amazonian growing up. And you knew her, and you and her were also like that. So I viewed you as my padrino, my godfather. Like, this was the person that my parents enlisted to take care of me, right? While they ran errands, or if they stayed and, you know, brought their books or whatever they had to do. Like, you were the person in charge. And I've always trusted you, always. And you're a person of honor, and I learned so much, even about parenting, even about being a dad, right? I'm a girl dad. I have 3 daughters and I have 1 son, right? And what you taught me applies to this day, whether it be discipline or whether it be a lesson and the delivery of that. Your way of communicating was always very to the point. If you were a surgeon, you are the surgeon that just goes directly in, you do the job, it's all professional, and then more good happens. And I always respected that, the discipline that you showed me, the confidence that you instilled. And how did I land on giving you a shout out today? I've been thinking about you for a long time, and we haven't trained in years, and you're my first sensei. So much so that my dad, right, teaching me boxing. My mom and him came together and said, that's not enough. This is a very, very difficult place to live. And, you know, our son's getting bullied, and the boxing can only do so much. We need to help him. And my parents came together and put me in Taekwondo. Now, they gave me choices. You know, we floated around. I got to do the sampler classes at many different gyms. And then I landed at your gym. Now, I don't know if it's because you're right by Toys R Us or because there was just something there, but I trained there for many years. And I remember training as a young kid, and then all of a sudden, life happens, and then not necessarily going to the gym, training, you know, developmentally, but missing that gym component. The one that I have now, right? Any home I live in needs to have a home gym, training facility indoors, and even outdoors, right? Portable. And the thing about training at your gym is walking in there, it was just right away, this is the place that will help you combat the bullying, the gangs, the fights, the crimes, the violence, etc. that just naturally manifests and propagate in living in the most segregated, one of the most segregated, right? Top 3, if not top 1 at the time, places in all of the world, is it? So experiencing that reality, right? They call it the concrete jungle, something that stuck with me. I hear it more now. That was the reality. And, you know, my dad had primed me with his boxing and grandfather, and then they brought me to you, and you were my Mr. Miyagi. And I was the karate kid, right? And I know that I'm not going to make a point, Taekwondo, karate, 2 different things. So I consider myself the Taekwondo kid. And every time after school, going and training at your dojo was just so relieving, right? Going through the motions, fighting the systematic oppression and the racism, and not only that, but the violence that expounds on top The only way to combat that is you got to put it out, right? We we can't, eye for an eye. That's not good. We can't do that. But water for fire, okay. Now we're working with elements. Now we have a game plan. You were my first coach, and I called you Sensei, and that's what I knew you by. And later on, I knew you as Master Sheng. And anytime I would go to school, hey, what are you doing after school today? Oh, I'm gonna go train. You wanna come with me? I would bring my friends, and I would tell them, and hey, you should train. You should come train. Do the sampler class, and have your parents like come. And I remember that being a point of relation that I have now to this day as a teacher, professor. Sometimes I have students come up to me with stories and narratives or experiences, things that they're going through, and they might need help. And what got me through a lot of that is training. I would train, and my recovery was a different type of training, and that all started with you. You're the root of that, right? You're part of the root, right? It started with my dad's boxing, and then they brought me to you, and you added the kicks and the fluidity of Taekwondo, and I appreciate that. And I remember everyone from there. I remember Arlie, Sensei Arlie, remember Sensei Leia, um, you, of course. And then I never got to why I stopped training as a young kid, right? Got it, made it to black belt. Stuff happened. And then I started again later on, right? So I started off in elementary school and then middle school, and then I led to high school. And I kept on training. High school demanded a lot of me, as you know, carving my way out of the hood and fighting systematic oppression, bringing my family up, right? I give shout out to you, my mother, and you know how she is, and she brought a lot of the family to a better place. And that all started with my dad, who was a workaholic, and he trained boxing because this is more than just a sport. It's survival. It's being able to fend for yourself. So adding your component of the martial arts made me a martial artist. I was a boxer, and then I was a WWE, WWF aficionado, like just training with my buddies and rough and playing all the sports, but not anything combative, and besides the WWF stuff and my dad's boxing. And when you added the kicks, I'm like, whoa, this is a whole different world. It's like going from ice skates to regular skates, and it's or vice versa. And the fluidity came, and it was just different, and that became my staple. I became my foundation. I kept training that for many, many years, and you gave me my first black belt, and I thank you so much. Then I went on to varsity wrestling, JV first, varsity wrestling. Then university presented many options from Aikido, Hapkido, and I say Aikido because that's been tested many, many times. Martial arts I have a lot of experimenting. And, jiu-jitsu made the package more complete, but it started with you. I remember your Taekwondo had a grappling component in that, right? It wasn't just about the striking, but if you can get a strike in and then a takedown, that was just, a double entendre. That's a cherry on top of the sundae. So thank you so much. And I will share stories with anyone that I gave a shout out to. And I brought this today. I brought the black belt because you gave me my first black belt. And I've traveled a lot that I have to, I haven't been able to keep all my supplies, but reloading back up. And I brought this because I remember that we would train and you did not accept bullying from anyone. So when I came from my little vicinity, the hood, going to a neighborhood school and experiencing what I experienced there, really neighborhood and gangs and the infestation of crime and drugs and violence, and just being a little kid, what can you do about that, besides observe and not contribute to that and stay close to your parents, right? Stranger danger. So as a young kid experiencing all of that, and this is the same type of neighborhood that Fat Joe talked about. Fat Joe talked about being a kid in his book, and they picked him up as a little kid, threw him in the garbage can. These are grown adults. Same neighborhood, ghetto infestation, just a lot of crime. And as a kid, we have to fight that. As a kid, you're like looking, can I cross the street, right? You know the lesson of crossing the street. Cross the street, any cars coming, you bob and weave, and all of a sudden you look, you both ways, and zoop, you run across the street. That same mentality. So we're cut from the same cloth. I have a lot of respect for you. My father spoke highly of you, and if anyone was gonna take his son to the next level, it was you. You added a large component that I then transferred and kept on pushing. My wife and I, coaches, we've coached a lot of youth, just basic rudimentary survival stuff that my dad applied to me, right? I had to walk home from school. And these individuals, these students that my wife and I worked with also had to walk from school, right, in these infested, gang-infested, crime-infested neighborhoods. And these are young kids, elementary, middle schoolers. And my wife and I taught them martial arts. Pretty much the basics of, okay, you're going to walk from here to here, scenarios, how to defend yourself, what to do, right? Los gritos, y cómo, how to just be in a better place, right, than an environment that tries to pull you left or pull you right? Because autonomy. So we were teaching them advocacy and, what happens if you pull, tug and pull, action, reaction, just the basics. And blessed, a lot of them that year made it home and school safe. And we just kept going, training, and it all started with you because your lessons, right? When you would ask, "Do any of you, what's going on?" and we would tell you, you would then customize the session based on, right? If I told you I was experiencing something at school, okay, what happened? Did they grab you like this? This is what we would do. So it was always sparring. It was always molding the person, right? Because that's what sparring is. Sparring is a way of molding someone. You ever notice when you're sparring someone in martial arts, where it's this dance? That's why this weekend, Rolly Romero versus Delfimo in boxing, these two are buddies. Those two are friends. But they know they got to dance. There's a dance. And it's when you're, dancing, when you're training in the air in this martial arts, you're molding the environment, action, reaction. So you taught me that. That was part of what you taught me. And I remember a lot of times having to apply simple techniques that you taught me just to make it home safely that day, just so I wouldn't be, right, another statistic. And it started with you. The roundhouse, I just kept on going and going and going. And then the fluidity, and then just adding to that arsenal. I respect you so much, Master Sensei Sung. And martial arts for me is a lifestyle. I share this with my children, and it all started with the Taekwondo School Dojo by Toys R Us. A story that I have, well, you did not accept bullying from anyone, and that was for me very refreshing coming from the hood. So what you would do, I remember, and you didn't care who the parents were. You had one of these or a variant of one of these, and I remember these are loud. It doesn't hurt, but whatever was close to you, if there was some tomfoolery going around, you would, bakata, 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 wah, and the parents would be like, and that's, you signed the waiver, this is discipline, and it was just very traditional, and no one ever fought that, and I respected that. I knew to be in line. I knew that this was a place to learn, but you weren't, bamboo sticks. I remember the bamboo sticks being close. You were looking for this, and someone had taken it. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna outsmart Sensei. I'm gonna take the hide at one of," and you're looking. Oh, okay. You take it. It was just you grab the bamboo stick and you're looking and you see it. You see someone sitting on the the pad, and all right, the bamboo stick just whoa, wakada. And I remember thinking, whoa, the WWE people do that. The WWF people do that. That thing, like, is real. That hurts. And it was just, we come here to learn. I know that doesn't fly now. That does not fly now. But it was part of our reality. And it did mold many boys into solid men, right? Just a little bit of focus and concentrate. And then the chitter chatter, right? Let's channel that energy to something a bit more conducive to our martial arts training. So thank you so much. And that was it. This is like, I think one of the longest ones so far. And that story is, I remember it to this day. And the reason I say you helped me with my parenting, Master Sensei, is because I don't believe in, whacking a kid, hitting a kid. That's just my personal belief. I can't do it. I can't do it. Now, I might make sounds, like I might be like, okay, if you don't clean your room right now and pick up, the messy toilet paper right now, oh, this is my method. Kids don't know this yet. They're not gonna watch this yet. Maybe we'll watch it one day, but they don't do something because they're like, oh, they need discipline. My wife, they need discipline. I'm like, oh, well, you know, that's sound. That's it. That's all I do. That's the extent. That's the extent of it. Is the sound of the belt. And then when we grapple, right? When Dad becomes coach or sensei, and we grapple, and then we're pummeling and pummeling and pummeling and pummeling, and we get the bear hug, and I'm like, hey, that room, how your room is so messy, and then training with the kids. Just I learned that from you because there's so many kids training at the facilities. So thank you so much. I apply it to my kids to this day. Every now and then, if you don't clean your room, oh. But I know that we live in different times. Nonetheless, I learned so much from you, and you helped me get out a lot of precarious positions. People tried to enlist me back in the day. They tried to enlist me in certain things, in certain activities, in certain organizations, and I just knew that you are the OG, like the original guru, like you are. And I knew that whoever, I was experiencing the bullying or the gangbangers or whatever was going on, I knew that they didn't even hold a match to you. And I knew that, like Mr. Miyagi, I view Mr. Miyagi as invincible. He's just, so you're my Mr. Miyagi. Thank you so much.